It's kind of wild to think about John D. Rockefeller Sr., this, titan of industry, starting out with this really specific goal.
Yeah, earn $100,000 and live to be 100. It's quite something.
It really sets a tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to the deep dive. You've given us some great material on Rockefeller's work ethic, really his drive. And today, our mission is basically to unpack that. We want to look at the key stages of his career, see what insights we can pull out about hard work, strategy, the entrepreneurial stuff you could actually use.
Right. And we've broken it down into roughly 7 stages.
Exactly. We'll cover the bookkeeper years, his first partnership, then committing to oil, the big strategy of scale, controlling the chain, dealing with opposition, and finally, building his legacy.
It sounds good. Where should we start? The beginning seems logical.
Let's do it. Those early years as a bookkeeper, maybe not the most exciting part on the surface, but sounds like it was crucial.
Oh, definitely. We're talking 1855, Cleveland. He's just 16, lands his first job at Hewitt & Tuttle, a produce commission firm. 16. And right away, the material suggests he wasn't just punching a clock.
Not at all. First, the long hours. Okay, maybe not unique, but still, dedication.
Sure.
But more than that, he apparently got really interested in the systems in the office, like how things actually ran.
Okay, so digging deeper than just ledger entries.
Yeah. And he developed this knack for calculating transportation costs. Seems dry, maybe, but it caught his attention.
And that focus paid off, didn't it? What were the sort of benefits from that early grind?
Well, that transportation cost thing, it led him to realize something important.
Yeah.
The rates weren't fixed.
Negotiable.
Rebates.
Exactly. That became a huge tool later. He also got really persistent about collecting debts, apparently quite different from his own father.
Interesting. Learning the value of cash flow early on.
You got it. Plus, his pay went up steadily over those first 3 years, went from like $16 a month to $58. Tangible progress.
So for you listening, what are the takeaways here? It seems like lesson 1, master the fundamentals, even boring stuff like transport costs.
Right. Know your operational details inside out.
Lesson 2,
Okay.
embrace efficiency. His interest in office systems wasn't just curiosity, it was about finding better ways.
And that definitely scaled up later.
In lesson 3, persistence pays off, like with those debts.
Yeah.
You got to follow through.
Yeah, those early habits, attention to costs, process, follow-through, they really formed a foundation. It wasn't just about working hard, but working smart, even back then.
Which naturally leads him to want more. That $100,000 goal is probably looming.
So 1859, he makes the jump, starts his first partnership, Clark, Gardner and Company, still in produce commission.
And this is where we see that hard work applied to his own venture. How did that manifest?
Well, first, raising the money. He used his savings, but also had to borrow $1,000 from his father.
A 10% interest rate.
Yep. Shows he was serious, willing to take on that risk.
Yeah.
Then there's the fact that this business, and apparently all his later ones, turned a profit every single year.
Every year. That's remarkable. Speaks volumes about his management.
It really does. And they adapted incredibly well during the Civil War, meeting the huge demand for supplies. They thrived when things were chaotic.
And the rewards followed.
Oh, yeah. Those first couple of years, profits were like $4,400, then $17,000. Big money for the time.
Wow.
Profits soared during the war because of that demand. And later, when Gardner left, it became Clark and Rockefeller, probably even more streamlined.
Okay, so lessons for entrepreneurs from this stage. Using your own funds, but also being smart about borrowing.
Definitely. Calculated risk with capital. Also, the absolute necessity of aiming for consistent profitability. It's about sustainability.
Right, and maybe the biggest one. Spotting and capitalizing on major market shifts, like the war. Being adaptable.
Couldn't agree more. You have to see the opportunities, even in disruption.
So produce is going well, but then something else catches his eye. Oil.
Yeah, the oil boom was starting. In 1863, he invests in a Cleveland refinery. But the really big moment comes a bit later.
February 1865. Buying out the Clark brothers.
For $72,500. A huge sum then. He formed Rockefeller and Andrews, and he himself called it the day that determined my career.
That's a powerful statement.
Hey.
What did that commitment look like in practice?
Well, first he had to borrow significantly again to make that purchase happen. Big bet. Then, crucially, he consistently plowed profits back into the business. Reinvestment was key, not just taking money out.
Building for the long term.
Exactly. And he adapted quickly, used observers, basically scouts, to keep tabs on the whole industry, staying informed.
And the benefits of that buyout. Pretty immediate.
Huge. He suddenly controlled the largest refinery in Cleveland, a major player overnight in a booming sector.
Perfectly timed for the post-war expansion, railroads all needing oil.
Right. It really set his path. His future was oil after that point.
Okay, lessons here for someone maybe facing a big decision. Decisive investment, calculated risk.
Yeah, sometimes you need to make that bold move for real growth. And secondly, that reinvestment principle is critical for scaling up.
Don't just pocket the profits.
Right. Build the asset. And thirdly, stay agile. Keep learning about your market, your competitors. That intel is vital.
Which leads us into the next phase, the one that really made his name, maybe even his notoriety.
The push for scale, horizontal integration.
The Cleveland Conquest around 1872. Standard Oil just starts
Yeah.
absorbing competitors.
Yeah, relentlessly. And the hard work here was multifaceted, constant, almost obsessive, focus on cutting costs, boosting efficiency and refining, aggressively negotiating transport discounts, those railroad deals, often secret ones.
Write the rebates again?
And then, yeah, buying out the competition, sometimes politely, sometimes less so. The threat of being driven bankrupt was real for rivals.
And the result of this campaign?
Stunningly fast consolidation. In just a few months in '72, they bought up 22 of the 26 rival refineries in Cleveland.
22 out of 26.
Yeah.
Wow.
It massively increased their efficiency because of the scale and gave them dominant control over refining in that critical hub.
Okay, lessons from this, perhaps more controversial phase. Ruthless efficiency as a weapon.
It certainly was for him. The drive to be the lowest cost producer gave him immense power.
Leveraging volume for better deals, like with the railroads.
Absolutely. Buying power matters. And, well, the idea of strategic acquisitions to gain market share quickly. It's a common strategy, though the ethics are often debated.
But he didn't stop at just refining, did he? The vision expanded.
No, he realized controlling just one piece wasn't enough. He moved into vertical integration, controlling more of the supply chain.
Like what specifically?
Building his own pipelines. A huge investment, bypassing the railroads partly. Building his own tank cars.
Taking control of transport.
Exactly, and developing a home delivery network. Getting kerosene directly to consumers.
Cutting out middlemen.
Right. And also hiring scientists. This is fascinating. They figured out what to do with the byproducts of refining, stuff that used to be waste.
Like tar, petroleum jelly, wax.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Turning waste into new products, new revenue streams.
So the benefits of going vertical were pretty clear.
Oh, definitely. Pipelines slashed transport costs. Byproducts created entirely new markets.
Smart.
And controlling distribution meant they could manage prices, ensure supply, even undercut rivals by selling below cost sometimes to gain market share.
Lessons here seem pretty powerful. The strategic advantage of controlling your whole process from start to finish.
Yeah, vertical integration can give you huge advantages in cost, quality, and stability. Less reliance on others.
Finding value in waste, basically. Innovation in unexpected places.
Absolutely. Don't discard the leftovers without looking closely. And optimizing how you actually get your product to the customer distribution is critical.
Okay, so Standard Oil is becoming this massive, integrated behemoth. That kind of power inevitably attracts pushback, right?
Oh, absolutely. This next phase is all about battling opposition. Legal fights started popping up. Public criticism grew louder.
Muckrakers like Ida Tarbell.
Her reporting was particularly damaging to his image, and they had direct conflict with established powers, like the Pennsylvania Railroad.
How did Rockefeller's hard work show up here? It's not building refineries now, it's fighting battles.
Well, taking on the Pennsylvania Railroad directly by building those pipelines, that was a massive, costly, and confrontational undertaking. Real strategic hard work.
High stakes.
Very. The sources also mention the personal stress he was under during all this consolidation and the media attacks. He complained about sleeplessness. It took a toll.
I can imagine.
And eventually, realizing the damage, they launched basically a PR campaign trying to improve his public image through memoirs and statements, a different kind of work.
Did these efforts pay off? Did they win these battles?
Largely, yes. They ultimately won the pipeline war with the Pennsylvania Railroad. The railroad sold its oil interests to Standard Oil.
Wow.
They formed the Standard Oil Trust to manage the complexity across different states, consolidating control even further. And while the image rehab was a longer game, they started actively trying to shape the narrative.
So lessons from facing the storm. Expect opposition when you get big.
It's almost inevitable. Success breeds scrutiny and rivals. You need resilience, personally and organizationally, to handle that pressure.
Right. That ability to withstand stress seems crucial.
Absolutely. And the importance of proactively managing your reputation.
Hmm.
You can't just ignore public perception or media attacks indefinitely. You need a strategy.
Which brings us finally to the last major phase, building a different kind of legacy.
Right. By the mid-1890s, he steps back from the day-to-day running of Standard Oil, and his focus shifts significantly towards philanthropy.
Influenced by Andrew Carnegie, apparently.
Yes, Carnegie's gospel of wealth seems to have resonated. But the real catalyst for the scale of his giving was Frederick Gates.
Gates advised him to move from, retail to wholesale philanthropy.
Exactly. Stop just giving small amounts here and there and think bigger. Systematic giving through major foundations.
And the hard work here is different again. It's strategic giving.
Well, first, it's worth noting he'd been giving charitably since his very first job. It wasn't totally new.
Okay. Consistency.
But yes, the shift guided by Gates required immense strategic thought, planning, organization, setting up these massive, enduring foundations like the Rockefeller Foundation. That's complex work.
And the impact was undeniable.
Huge. Funding the creation of the University of Chicago, Rockefeller University, major scientific and educational institutions, supporting massive public health campaigns. The hookworm eradication in the South is a Ferris example, saving countless lives. His total giving was over $500 million in his lifetime.
An incredible sum, especially back then. So, final lessons here, thinking about legacy.
And maybe that philanthropy doesn't have to wait until the very end. It can be part of the journey.
Integrated earlier.
Yeah. And that strategic, large-scale giving, like through foundations, can have an incredibly lasting impact, far beyond individual donations.
Thinking systemically about giving back.
Exactly. And prompting the question for anyone successful. What kind of long-term legacy do you want to build beyond just the business itself?
So, wrapping this all up, looking back across Rockefeller's journey, it really feels like a story about, relentless hard work, yes, but fused with this evolving strategic mind and just ruthless execution.
Whether building an industrial empire or a philanthropic one, the intensity was always there.
Yeah. Hopefully, for you listening, this deep dive has sparked some thoughts about dedication, about strategy, about what it takes to build something significant. And it leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Rockefeller was brilliant at spotting inefficiencies and opportunities for scale in his time. So the question for you is, in today's world, with all its complexities, what overlooked inefficiencies or maybe emerging opportunities are sitting there waiting for someone with that kind of focus to capitalize on in your field or even just in your own work?
That's a great question to ponder.
Definitely something to think about. Join us next time for another deep dive. It's kind of wild to think about John D. Rockefeller Sr., this, titan of industry, starting out with this really specific goal.
Yeah, earn $100,000 and live to be 100. It's quite something.
It really sets a tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to the deep dive. You've given us some great material on Rockefeller's work ethic, really his drive. And today, our mission is basically to unpack that. We want to look at the key stages of his career, see what insights we can pull out about hard work, strategy, the entrepreneurial stuff you can actually use.
Right. And we've broken it down into roughly 7 stages.
Exactly. We'll cover the bookkeeper years, his first partnership, then committing to oil, the big strategy of scale, controlling the chain, dealing with opposition, and finally, building his legacy.
It sounds good. Where should we start? The beginning seems logical.
Let's do it. Those early years as a bookkeeper, maybe not the most exciting part on the surface, but sounds like it was crucial.
Oh, definitely. We're talking 1855, Cleveland. He's just 16, lands his first job at Hewitt & Tuttle, a produce commission firm. 16. And right away, the material suggests he wasn't just punching a clock.
Not at all. First, the long hours. Okay, maybe not unique, but still, dedication.
Sure.
But more than that, he apparently got really interested in the systems in the office, like how things actually ran.
Okay, so digging deeper than just ledger entries.
Yeah. And he developed this knack for calculating transportation costs. Seems dry, maybe, but it caught his attention.
And that focus paid off, didn't it? What were the sort of benefits from that early grind?
Well, that transportation cost thing, it led him to realize something important.
Yeah.
The rates weren't fixed.
Negotiable.
Rebates.
Exactly. That became a huge tool later. He also